honestly, we're honored, excited, and delighted. And I think there are over 100 people in the room to have you here today with us, Abhijata. And as I was showing to you outside, your grandfather, BKS Iyengar, 40 years ago, actually opened the old building, which is this site, which has now become the Iyengar Institute of Maida Vale. And I think it's honestly very auspicious that the first time you're coming to London, and hopefully many more to come, or coming to our institute, is 40 years thereafter. We are really excited to have you here. How do you feel?
Oh, I feel thrilled. Growing up, I've heard stories from my grandfather about his early visits to Europe, to London. Those days were mobiles and emails weren't there. The letters that he and his children would exchange with each other, the interest that the people here were showing to yoga, to an alien subject, and my grandfather's pride in representing this subject and taking it to a land so far away. So hearing all those stories, it has always been, even though I've never been here, Maida Vale has always fallen on my ears, and I've grown up, even though physically I hadn't been here, I have grown up being associated with this place for a long time now.
Guruji described how he planted this seed of yoga in London, which sprouted and reached all the corners of the world. And as you said, you travel a lot and you practice yoga in many different countries. We would love to get your experiences and share those with us. And how have you found that?
My grandfather would always joke around, that now when you go, you have people arranging for your visas, you have people arranging for your
Especially
accommodation.
when you have an Indian passport. I can relate to that. It's safe, right? It's right next to you.
It's gone a little away.
It's gone further.
Everything is so beautifully taken care of, and he would reminisce about the times when that was not the case with him. So he definitely struggled in the early years.
Yeah.
So for us, now it's, we are invited and you're excited to be here. So in that sense, it's a completely different starting point for the both of us. But between Guruji and me, I mean, there are so many people who've done so much to take the subject to the people. So even though we are all honored that we are in this time zone and era of, where some of us here have seen him alive, but we have access to his teachings. But there are so many people in across the globe that have sacrificed so much to establish the seeds that he sowed. So even though it was the stellar work of one man, it would not have been possible without the active participation from the people on the other side. So I would like to take this opportunity to thank all the people who, some are here, some are with Guruji up in the heavens right now. So I would like to take this opportunity to actually thank each of them for what they have done. And so many of you, how many of you are teachers here on the video? So it's, yeah. So each of you is actually doing a great bit to take it on. So we are on the same team, same boat.
You brought up something when you came in about mobile phones and social media and other aspects, which was, as you said, very different, at least 40 years ago for sure. How do you communicate the relevance of yoga in this day and age with the young generation, growing up, social media, that concept of being patient? How do you relate to that?
Concept of being?
Patient, and how people are now getting distracted so quickly.
Yeah. It's a new normal right now, and we just have to walk with it. I think for the previous generation, like for my grandfather, when he flew to London, his family would have thought, what's going on? How can you even fly to a foreign land? So each generation has its things which are new to it. And for our generation, technology is there, we accept it. But I think Patanjali formulated it beautifully thousands of years ago when he said everything in nature can either take you towards yoga or take you away from yoga. Can lead you on the right path, or you could misuse it and go the wrong way. So technology is just another thing like that. It's a part of Prakriti, it's a part of nature. And it's either going to take us towards a wonderful life, or it's going to take us away, and the choice is ours. So we can't blame the objects for their distractions. That's what yoga is going to teach us. We have to look at our own senses of perception, our organs of action, and see how we can utilize them for a great life rather than become a victim to it. So I wouldn't
Embrace
think
technology in the
yeah,
right
I don't
way.
think it's a big distraction. You know, I was reading when books were first printed, people were aghast that it's going to be a distraction. So it's always going to be there.
Yeah, and you can also push the message much faster and further away. We have a very
Guru's book, T. Krishnamacharya, in the Yoga Makaranda in the 1930s talks about how yoga is being commercialized. So it's all, each generation is going to be aghast at what the next generation is doing.
Yeah. How do you see the role of professionalization and certification for yoga in the contemporary world? Or, how would you like those with an Iyengar how would you like those with an Iyengar qualification to be viewed by others?
I think it was evident when the system was put in place. It was just that, how it first started was when a few of the students who were learning from him traveled back to their home country to teach. They said they wanted to somehow tell the people that they are learning a yoga which is very different from what the world perceives yoga as being. So they requested Guruji that if we can somehow tell them that we are learning from you, because the world thinks of yoga as very different. I mean, even if you randomly ask a few people on the streets as to what yoga is, you're going to get so many different answers. And in those days, it was about austerity, going to the Himalayas, and fasting and not eating and walking on thorns. So in the immigration office, when Guruji would enter, he would be asked, why are you here? Here to teach yoga? Oh, so can you swallow pins and needles? So this was the question the immigration officials would ask him in that age. So the notion of yoga was very different. So when they expressed that they want to show people, have an identity, and tell them that we are learning from this man, BKS Iyengar, so that's how this system of certification and this system of calling it Iyengar Yoga came about. So, so your question was, how do I perceive it?
Yeah, I think the question was, maybe also a lot of teachers in this room as well, the qualification, the Iyengar Yoga qualification. How do you perceive that, and how is that portrayed outside as well when you travel so much?
I think you and I perceive it the same way. It's a wonderful benchmark, a quality approval, that if you are Iyengar Yoga certified, then you are safe hands for anybody to walk into your yoga classes.
The student-pupil relationship. Could you say something more about that within yoga, and maybe how is it similar or different, how you see or perceive a mentor-mentee relationship?
How many of you here identify yourselves as students of your teacher, as students of the subject? All of you. So then when you're students, what are you looking for? As students, you're looking to learn something. Okay, so when you identify yourself as a student, you're looking at learning something from a person, from a text, from a situation, from anything. So here, since all of us identify as Iyengar Yoga students, we are looking at learning what Iyengar Yoga is. Now, this question of mentee is coming from the certification point of view again. So that's a whole new field. Because as a student, you're looking to learn what the subject is for yourself. Whereas when I'm assuming the question is about certification, in that context, mentors and mentees, in that context, you are learning to teach. And for anyone who has to learn to teach, the first step is learning in itself. So the studentship has to come first. And when the student is ripe, either the student feels they are ripe enough or the teacher feels that they are ripe enough to actually take this to another person. It is like the thing with Guruji was that when he, by giving us permission to teach Iyengar Yoga, he lighted a candle for us. And we as Iyengar Yoga teachers have the power in us to light 100 more candles. So the light only grows, the light only expands. So a mentor-mentee relationship, it has a higher responsibility. Whereas a teacher-student relationship is only about acquainting the student with the subject, maybe enter into the nuances of the subject a little. Whereas for a mentor-mentee, it's a whole new field because you're going to learn to take responsibility of another person. You're going to take responsibility of enabling that person to light 100 more candles. So it's a whole new, it's a different context. I don't think you can put it under the same bracket.
So I'm going to ask a different question which came up here, and I don't know who asked that, but I was fascinated because someone, I think as a mic check, said, what did you have for breakfast? Someone has asked, what is the rule of eating cookies before practice? and I just want to know that because I'm like, nothing before my yoga, and I'm like, cookies? That is fantastic. So there may be a backstory here which someone has asked, which I'm not aware of.
There are always rules on what you should eat and what you should not eat. But as a student, I didn't follow all those rules. So when I would finish my college and I had to rush for the classes at the institute with my uncle or aunt, sometimes I would be hungry and I would eat a dosa or a dabeli, some chaat. And I would plan, it's a pranayama class, so it's okay if I eat a little snack. Like a dabeli is like a bread in which is stuffed certain vegetables with the Indian spices. And then it is sauteed with butter. So it's a lovely meal to have. So in my head, I would calculate, oh, it's a pranayama class, so it doesn't matter. And as luck would have it, the pranayama class would be initiated from maybe Urdhva Dhanurasana and Vipritandasana. So that taught me to not predict what's going to happen in the class and better to have an empty stomach. So rules are going to be there. And in one of our travels with Guruji, we'd all eaten a nice heavy meal, and he said, "Come on, get up, do Trikonasana." And for as long as it was Trikonasana and Parshvakonasana, it was okay. And then he said, "Now Shirshasana." And the group that was traveling with him to teach, he was going to invited to teach yoga somewhere, and they were shell shocked. But we just had a heavy meal, and with Guruji, those of you who spent time, you could never eat how much you wanted. You would eat how much he wanted you to eat. So you don't stop. You go from the starter, you go till the dessert, and the dessert is never a single serving. He would, always want you to have more of that. He would say, eat sweet and be sweet. And so after such a meal, he said, Shirshasana. And for all the teachers there, here was BKS Iyengar breaking the rule of Iyengar Yoga that, eat and then go for Shirshasana. And then he said, oh, come on, it's only Shirshasana. Shirshasana is fine after a heavy meal. It is Sarvangasana, which is going to be problematic. And I won't ask you to do Sarvangasana. So I think your own experience with your classes and practice will lead the way, because rules are going to be there. You're going to be told, don't eat this, don't eat that. And if that troubles you, now different people have different metabolic power. Some people are able to digest very fast. Some people take a long time to digest. So all of that is going to be there. As a benchmark, it is said 4 hours. One cookie, if age is on your side, I don't know. I'm seeing a lot of elderly people in London who seem to have the strength and power of, they're not eligible to be called elderly. Like when Penny picked me up today morning and we are walking in the rain and she gave me her umbrella, didn't want an umbrella for herself. And I'm trying to protect my passport and not my head. Again, it depends on so many other factors. So if you just fall in love with what you're doing on the mat, that will show you what's okay and what's not okay.
So cookie or no cookie. So we've got samosas and gulab
Oh,
jamun after.
please,
And
indulge.
then and then we'll have you do shirshasana.
Yeah, sure. Shirshasana I know is okay after that. It's, one thing is that a regular practice of these things, it's a problem. Because whenever you've eaten a meal, there are so many chemical reactions happening in the body. Gases are being formed because that's a part of the chemical process. So if you're going to regularly do this, you accumulate all of that. But once in a while, it's okay.
So you
So
said,
maybe we should do a class after the samosas.
yeah,
and then we'll
absolutely. The studio will be cleared up. You mentioned just when we were walking in that you'd come from Germany. Shame you didn't get the Bavarian nice sunny weather. But a question for you
No,
was...
when I entered Bavaria, it was very chilly.
Oh, was it? Okay.
I went there from Switzerland, which was snowing. So my suitcase was all packed for sunny weather. And then a day before, I get a call saying, it's snowing, you have to come prepared. So I got a taste of different intensities of the European weather.
I was in Munich yesterday, it was warm, but we definitely got you the rain of London.
Yes.
So as you said, you've traveled a lot, you've seen the future coming through on Iyengar Yoga. And it's a question actually that I would like to ask as well is, where do you see Iyengar Yoga 15 or 20 years, or where would you like to see it? And I don't know if that's too long a thing, or however you find the right time. As a person who looked at the markets, if I can go more than 20 minutes, it's great, but would love to get your views.
I'm not able to see myself 15, 20 years from now. I think maybe it's a cultural thing for us, that you do what you can to the best of your... I don't even think it's a cultural thing. I think it's for all of us. It's a yoga cultural thing, if I may say so, that you do to your best what you can right now. You can't really predict the future. One thing that I've learned from my grandfather, my uncle, my aunt, and a few other lovely people that I've had the fortune in my life to come across, is that when you're honest in your approach, when you're fully honest in what you're doing, nature has your back. So where do I see Iyengar Yoga from now? If each one of us can do our best, I think we'll all leave wonderful light for the next generation, and it will find its way. The problem is if we start interfering with our own calculations and our own biases and prejudices and ulterior motives come into the picture, then things are going to take a turn to the other side. I mean, like you just mentioned, that Guruji laid this foundation, the old building, 40 years ago. And the people's honest work for the last 40 years makes today possible. Yeah. I mean, who would have thought 40 years ago that, would you celebrate the 4 decades? Would this continue to be there? Nobody would have known. But each one who has been involved in building up this community anywhere has had a true heart, and I think that's one of our strengths as an Iyengar Yoga community, that you fall in love with the subject, you begin to understand yourself. I just saw the photographs outside, and there was a quote that it's a mirror with which you look at yourselves from within. So our own yoga sows the seeds for us to look at ourselves from within. So when all this happens, I think it's going to be smooth. Difficulties are going to come our way, but that's a part of life.
Well, we have hopefully many, many more years here.
Absolutely.
Okay, a question that came up.
Can I just,
please,
for a light mood, how many of you have been to the Institute in Pune? Yeah, so I think quite a few of you probably came pre-pandemic also. So you are aware of the crowd, the mats being close to each other, and the teachers telling you, bring the mats closer, mats can overlap, etc. So when Guruji built that place in 1975, he thought he made a mistake. To his friends who were helping him with setting up of the place, all the official work that needs to be done, he confided in them that, oh my God, I've got this place which is so big. what are we going to do with such a big place? Who knows if people are even going to be interested and if people are going to come? And then as he was expressing this aloud, it seems he remarked, that doesn't matter. If nobody turns up, we'll let this hall out on rent for wedding ceremonies.
Wow.
So it can become a wedding hall that people can rent for their weddings. So that's fine.
Yeah.
So we can't plan the future. And now the Institute's place is not enough anymore. And I'm sure with the community growing, for all of you, that is always there, that as more and more people get interested and attracted to the subject, that's why it's good. We have the certification system, we have more teachers that take the subject to more people.
And you become bigger. The institute becomes bigger, and hopefully we'll make this institute large as well. I think there would have never been a problem to fill a hall with weddings. Over here, it may be slightly different. So a question from some of the members. Despite aspirations, sutra study and dedicated practice from time to time, politics and personal differences mean that tensions arise between yogis. Are there any thoughts you could share on Maitri, friendliness within the yoga community?
If tension arises between the yogis, then they are not yogis. When I moved to Pune, I was 17 years old. When emails just came in, the institute did not have an email address. I had an account, a few other students had their accounts, and we would, Guruji would dictate a mail or a reply to a letter, and we would type that. So very often I have typed this sutra in his replies, that Maitri, friendliness is the cornerstone of yoga aspirants. So what Patanjali says is you have to be friendly towards those who are in sukha, those who are happy. Because what happens for us is when we look at someone happy, we are upset that we are not so happy. Yeah? Someone gets a bigger car, you are upset that you don't have a car that is as big or bigger than that. Somebody gets a bigger home, a new home, you immediately compare that home with your own home. And Patanjali says that for your mental peace, you need to develop these qualities, and that is friendliness towards one who is in sukha, friendliness towards one who is in joy. And and given the context, you're talking about differences of thoughts and animosity that develops between colleagues or yoga practitioners, as they call them as yogis. See, no two persons are going to fully agree upon anything. How many of you are married here? How many of you are in a relationship? Yeah, so whether you're married or not, you're in a relationship, you know that no two members are going to be in complete agreement all the time. Your own body and mind are not in full agreement all the time. Your right side and left side are not in full agreement all the time. So why do you expect another person to be in full agreement with you? So differences of opinion are always going to be there. But as yoga students, we need to be sensitive to understand that it's a difference of opinion, it's a difference of thought, and be open enough that this difference of opinion can be a fertile ground for greater ideas, for bigger ideas. Because whenever we agree with someone, we don't really agree with that person. We agree with that person because that person has the same thought as ours. So you are actually agreeing with yourself. We never agree with another person. It's only when the thoughts match that we say we are in agreement, but that's seldom the case. And I think here Guruji has, when Neil Armstrong landed on the moon, one step for man is a giant leap for mankind. I think it holds true with our dear Guruji that one step that he took on this journey of yoga has been a giant leap for all of us. Because our practice of asanas and pranayama can instill upon us this sensitivity which makes us see things as they are. The problem is we don't see things as they are. So suppose you and I enter into an argument today and we meet 3 months later and we discuss another topic. Our memory is going to bring back the argument from 3 months ago. That's how the human brain is programmed to function. If the human brain cannot draw these patterns, then it cannot work. It's a comatose state. So that's how the human brain is wired to work. Whereas for a yoga student, you can change this hardwiring of the brain by not allowing these differences of opinion to concretize as emotions. One of the beautiful statements of Guruji that has really stayed with me when I read it, that when we allow feelings to harden into emotions, when we allow feelings to harden into emotions, we deny the possibility of freshness that life can give us. We always look at things from the past. Oh, this person is suggesting the idea. Oh, this person always thinks like that because this is what that person wants. So she always ends up giving this suggestion. That's wrong. Our memory is always going to dictate terms. And when I say Guruji took a giant leap for mankind, I mean with our simple asanas on the sticky mat, with our practice of pranayama on the mat, we become equipped with this power to actually become aware as to when we are being led by our memory. So if it's, tell me a pose you don't like. Parivrita Parshvakonasana. So if I'm going to tell you now, come on, get up Parivrita Parshvakonasana, you're going to think, oh no, why did I come for this meeting today? Oh, it was raining, I was better off at home. So your memory of your previous Parivrita Parshvakonasana is going to dictate, oh, why did I do this? And your mind goes into that trail of those thoughts, of those nagging thoughts. And when you actually get on the mat, and in our system with props, with adaptations, no asana is actually a taboo. You can approach any asana, and when this happens, our mind is suddenly open to, oh, why did I have a dislike for this all along? If you just get on it, you bend the back leg for Parivrita Parshvakonasana. Can I have a volunteer for Parivrita Parshvakonasana, please? So
Lovely.
if Parivrita
Thank you, Christian.
So if the classical method is not possible and she just bends and she rests her back knee down, this mind which is saying, oh, Parivrita Parshvakonasana is terrible, suddenly heaves a sign of relief and says, oh, it's possible. Okay? So if that can be an option for others, but some of you may not go to the next step. So this is what I mean when I say the wiring in the brain can be changed to not just be led astray by your memory. And here we have a great chance to have a better life, because then friendliness is going to be a part of our living, because you're not going at things only from memory.
That is fantastic, because I don't think the question asks all this here, but you've said it in such a good way, because you're right. I think it doesn't only apply to yoga.
I think Iyengar Yoga teachers have a knack.
Yes.
You know, they say what they want to say. Whether it answers the question or not, we convey what we want to say.
How do you see the place for mantra, chanting, kirtan in Iyengar Yoga practice?
All of these are, so for those who don't know, these are forms of worship, forms in which you can connect to the Lord. Like you have, any religion will have its method to connect to the universal power. One of Patanjali's brilliant work was that in the Yoga Sutras, if you read, religion is not an aspect. There are sutras in which Ishvara is described, and this Ishvara is nothing but a name given in Sanskrit to a supernormal power. It doesn't talk about certain deities like Krishna or Rama or deities from other religions. It does not talk about that. So Yoga Sutras, the subject of yoga, keeps religion out of it. And again, Guruji's wonderful statement, yoga is not a religion, but a science of religion. Yoga is not a religion, but a science of religion which makes you understand your own religion better. It's a science of religion which makes you understand your own religion better. The thing with yoga is it makes you a better sports person. It makes you a better sales executive. It makes you a better doctor. It makes you a better parent. It makes you a better spouse. It makes you a better student, because your sensitivity quotient is increased. So the place for this is, again, it's a personal liking. So like some of you like Italian food and some of you like Indian food, we cannot say which is right and which is wrong. And a person who loves Italian food cannot be forced to fall in love with Indian food. So in that manner, these forms of worship in the Hindu religion itself is offered as a buffet. You take whichever method applies to you. That is why in our religion we have so many deities. Because some people love the strength and power. Some people love the humility. So there are deities that manifest the strength. There are deities that manifest intelligence. There are deities that manifest magical powers. So depending upon your taste, you take to a deity of your liking, and then the destination is the same. So for a yoga practitioner, Guruji has also kept religion aside. And in fact, in those days, he was told to not use any word with a religious context. So even the invocation to Patanjali was not allowed in the beginning. He was not allowed to refer to the word mind. He was not allowed to refer to the word spirituality or philosophy. They said, teach it as a science of the body, which is reality, and nothing intangible about it. So when Guruji was first invited to the West, that was the condition. And I think in one sense, even though it was the hands were tied for Guruji because he could not refer to these things, but it explored another avenue altogether. It opened out another avenue altogether where he could just talk about the body, which is concrete, which is tangible, and reach the mind. Without saying quieten the mind, he could talk about Halasan and make us feel the quietness in the mind on its own. So things happened as a result, and that is more powerful. So in the practice of Iyengar Yoga, Kirtan and Bhajan, I will not go against what my grandfather did. But in a gathering, sometimes these things are done because it's good for people to know about it. But it's a personal choice.
Yeah.
I wouldn't. It's each one's personal call.
Yeah. I'm going to pause and ask anyone in the audience, because I think Abhijata has shared a lot with us. So we have a few other questions, but I think I want to know if anyone else in the audience has any questions or reflections. Yes, please.
Yeah, just picking up, Abhijata, on the last point you were talking about. So we know that the framework of yoga in the whole of the world is very different. And as we know, your grandfather taught in London, and it wasn't known as Iyengar yoga. And a lot of us here experienced that. I think I did through my mother, going to probably his classes and things. But now we have, as a community here, we have a lot of conversations with our friends and people around us. I like this yoga. I like the flow. I like Kundalini. And I, myself and other people, we have difficulties being open and not creating divides because of, like, it was interesting what you were just saying about the Italian food, Indian food, or kirtan. And because yoga isn't about dividing, it's sometimes we don't want to separate Iyengar yoga because we know it's yoga. So could you give us some help on how we talk and respect people who say, yeah, but I like a flow, I like yin, I like nidra, I like this. I say we teach hatha yoga, we teach Patanjali's yoga, we teach all of those things, but I don't want to conflict other people who are doing different things.
No, again, I think it comes down to one of the questions we had earlier, that we just have to be open and welcome to another person's liking and opinion. We shouldn't be judgmental about what they like. We shouldn't be judgmental about their preferred choices. You can have an opinion, but that's your opinion, and you never know if an opinion can always be wrong. But we have the faith in our system where we believe strongly. So as a student of Iyengar Yoga, I believe strongly that this system has greater things to offer than what can be offered in a flow yoga class or in any other class. But I have not really been to those classes. I've only read in magazines about what they offer in those classes. I have met people who have come to the institute who have described what they did in different schools of yoga. And even in India, I don't even think it's just here. Even in India, there are things like just do this, and that's a kind of yoga. You're moving fingers. So it's a part and parcel of in any corner of the world. We just go about doing what we know. If your friend is not open to what you're doing, that's fine. They are entitled to their opinions. But as teachers of Iyengar Yoga, I think we just end up conveying what our subject is. Okay, let me not use a word that it's our duty or it's our responsibility. We convey as teachers what we've learnt. We convey the subject. So if you are asked questions about Kundalini Yoga, as an Iyengar Yoga student or teacher, you should be able to answer. If you are asked about flow yoga, you should have an answer. So you should know the thought process of Iyengar Yoga. But there's no need to get into battles with another person for their opinions. And about, you're right, ultimately yoga is one. In fact, when Guruji himself was asked about Iyengar Yoga, he said, I don't call what I teach as Iyengar Yoga. He said yoga is one. So definitely yoga is one. But in today's popularity, the popularity of yoga is so much. They have laughter yoga, they have beer yoga, they have all these kinds of yoga. So in that sense, why do they brand these things? They brand these things because they need to show how they are different from the others. What is the USP? What is the selling point of your method? And that becomes your tag. So beer yoga or flow yoga, whatever yoga, Kundalini, Nidra, all of these becomes your selling points in which you are trying to prove how you are different and how you have something else to offer. But for a yogi, for someone who's understood what yoga really is, they understand that yoga is one. It's not about me being different from another person, but I become a common denominator for the whole of humanity. So a true yogi is not going to be branding himself or herself differently or separately, because a yoga student, a yoga sadhaka understands that as an individual, each one is a common denominator of the entire human race. So there is no need to have a selling point. But in a conference, in a chat, you should know the thought process. Then you don't go on the defensive. Once you have conviction about what you're doing and why you're doing, you don't go on the defensive. It is only when you go on the defensive that you appear as being offensive.
Hi, thank you very much. I just wanted to ask a question. In the West, in the last 20 years or so, there's a big conversation around decolonizing yoga, and who is the yoga for? I'm just wondering from your point of view if these conversations are occurring in India and whether you think Patanjali's yoga should be decolonized and how.
For us, no. Patanjali was very clear. He says, Sarvabhauma Mahavratam. Sarvabhauma. It is universal. Yoga he talks of it with respect to the vows of yama, niyama, but it extends to yoga itself, because when each limb is being spoken about, it reflects the whole also, WHOLE. So he calls it Sarvabhauma Mahavratam. It's universal. It is irrespective of class, caste, gender, nationality, religion. So as a tenet itself, yoga is meant for all. Now, has yoga been colonized? I don't know. But if you think that you are playing a part, either directly or indirectly, in keeping yoga away from someone, then that is unethical. I think as a human being, this is something for every human being. It's not a yoga lesson. It's not a lesson of moral values. It's a part of human tradition. You may be from London, I am from India, I follow this religion, you follow that religion, I am Iyengar Yoga. Here you all happen to be Iyengar Yoga, but if it were a public space, there may be other kinds of yoga here. But our most basic parampara, our most basic tradition is being a human being. Mm-hmm. So being a human being, the word humane comes from human, and it's a pity that the most inhuman things happen in the human race. So it's our tradition as a human being that we are open to all, that we are kind to all, that what we have is for everyone. That is why in India it is called Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, that the whole world is my family. So for us it's always been for everyone. And if we are not following that, then as Guruji says, yoga is a mirror to look at ourselves from within. We have to look at this from within and correct ourselves. And all these things cannot be enforced from outside. You can clear the way, you can, be instrumental in doing things, But ultimately, discipline has to come from within. Transformation has to come from within. So it is each one's individual personal journey to be a better human being. And when each one becomes a better human being, then the world becomes a better place.
I think there was one other question there, yeah.
I started doing Iyengar Yoga when the old system was in place, as probably most people here, and did some assessments. And one of the things that I really appreciated about the assessment process was being part of a peer group who progressed more or less together, and we would meet and have sort of, something we were working on together, and it really gave us a reason to prioritize meeting and strengthening a part of the community, which I personally found very valuable. So now I know the new system's been discussed a lot, and there's, and I know there are very good reasons behind it, but I just wanted to sort of mention it because for me, I feel a little loss from the old, from the loss of the old system, because with the busyness of people's lives and the pressures in London specifically, I found that my peer group sort of disintegrated when we didn't have the assessments as a strong motivator to meet and practice together. I miss that. And this isn't a challenge, it's just a comment, because I'd like to hear from you maybe something about this.
Why should assessment be a motivator for you to get together? Why should assessment be the motivator for you to study together? Why should assessment be a motivator for you to do a group study? Okay? So, because there was an enforcement externally that this has to be done, you did it. But now you should just open your eyes and your mind a little to pursue what you like, and you can always meet people. It doesn't mean that if it's a mentor-mentee relationship, it doesn't mean the mentees shouldn't get together. In fact, you can now have the mentor in your lunch party. Along with the mentees, the mentor can be invited for your lunch get-togethers. So I don't see a reason. I understand, I acknowledge this as a consequence, but then I would go to the root cause, that don't let the assessment be the motivator for this. Let the thirst for doing things together, let the joy of doing things together continue to bind you. I understand that you get together, it's nice, but still there is this pressure point of the assessment, which is your initiator. So all said and done, it is going to be stressful. So anything can be stressful in life. I think you just need to open your heart a little and get together. I'm sure there are other mentees who would agree with you. You just have to meet those people and make a group again. We have WhatsApp groups for everything now. So I'm sure it can happen still.
I just wanted to say something. It's more of an observation, and I would like to know what you think. I came to yoga from injury. And for me, so I have a lot of asanas that I don't like. But not because of the memory of them, but because my body, every time I'm in that asana, hurts. And a lot. And I can actually do a lot of damage to my body if I'm not careful. But what Iyengar Yoga, what yoga taught me, is I think a bit more, it goes beyond the memory and the mind, but what the body taught me while I was doing Iyengar, A, that Iyengar is a safe practice, and B, that for 1,000 times I can be on that mat and go mad with Prasarita, Trikonasana. But there will be one day, and it happens all the time, when actually I can kind of do it. And then I will go back maybe 1,000 times I can't do it, but then that day again happens when I can do it a little bit better. And what I observed, what my body told me through the practice, which overrid the mind, is that my body through the practice gets better and better, and the spine gets more elongated. And I think it's that body experience that makes the memory non-existent. I don't have a bad memory about an asana. I have the constant reminder that that asana is really hurtful. But I always get better. And this has happened with all my asanas. And that's been so transformative.
And what was the injury? How did it happen?
Oh, I was born with a fractured
Okay. See,
vertebra. So for me, that was the transformative thing.
Yeah, but what I would like to add
Thank you.
here is it's a wonderful observation that you made about yourself, but here you're looking at body and mind as two distinct things.
Oh, no, together. No, together. That was the beauty of it. The fact that through the body and the practice, the mind changed.
Okay.
So probably we were saying the same things, but I was approaching it from the body.
No, we all do. We all do approach from the body, so.
Okay. So no, that's it.
So
So
take
that
me
was
back
so
on your
that
team.
was for me, that's what kept me here.
Exactly, because
for
what the body does
20 years.
is
Thank you.
that it gives you a reality check. Because with the mind, there are so many options possible. Oh, am I perceiving this as pain? Oh, am I being fussy? Oh, is this fear or is this real pain? So because the mind is so intangible, it's difficult to pinpoint. But whereas with the body, because it's a concrete substance, you can pinpoint. And the thing is that since the mind is intermingled with the body throughout, by working on the body, you are accessing the mind. And that is why I think Guruji's one step is a leap for all of us.
I'm actually a very new student to Iyengar Yoga, and I was drawn to it because of the holistic approach. So how did Guruji perceive perfection? Because whilst I've been doing my class with many different mentors, as you said, the level of perfection obviously varies from person to person. I also have a small injury on my hip, but I try and do my best. So is there a way I could improve on doing my best, or do I just go with what I'm doing with the view to becoming better with time?
I think we have a conditioned view of what is perfect. Now, if you look at nature, what is perfect? What's the perfect tree? Which is the perfect flower? Which is the perfect mountain? Which is the perfect landscape? When Guruji had to deliver yoga to us scientifically, he had to use a vocabulary to convince the people what it is. Alignment is a very popular word that we use in our community, that Iyengar Yoga, immediately the tag is alignment. And one of Guruji's statements, that alignment is to not disturb the God-given form. In our understanding, we would think, oh, a perfect alignment means your right shoulder and left shoulder are precisely the same, your right hip and left hip are precisely the same. You're a bilaterally symmetrical person, human being, so everything has to be the same. But internally, there's no bilateral symmetry. Your liver, your stomach, your heart. So internally, bilateral symmetry is not there. To convince upon the people that something which is so wayward can lead to pain, we need to use this vocabulary saying, align yourselves. But once you travel a certain distance in Iyengar Yoga, you can't just look at Iyengar Yoga as being a method of alignment, a method which says there is one perfect thing. There is only one perfect thing according to any culture, and that is the supreme power. So everything else is bound to have its fluctuations. Human body is made up of matter which is undergoing constant changes. There is a constant flux. That is one of the parameters to identify whether something is Prakriti. If something is nature, belongs to nature, there is constant flux in it. Our protons and neutrons inside are in continuous motion. So there is no one perfect state. But understand that to convey certain ideas, we need to use certain vocabulary. And when we stick to the vocabulary, then you miss what it can be. So if you would recommend, I have to have a wonderful English dessert, what would you recommend? What is it? Eat a mess. So can someone Google up eat a mess and tell me what it says? Okay. So Iton mess is a traditional English dessert consisting of a mixture of strawberries or other berries, meringue, and whipped cream. Now, for those of you who've eaten an Iton mess, does this justify the experience of eating the Iton mess? No, it's far from it. So as long as we are stuck with words, we are not going to get the real picture. And that's why this is a subject of experience. It is something that you have to experience. Nobody has a perfect hip. Nobody has a perfect knee. Nobody has a perfect blood report. It doesn't exist. So given your condition, you go towards what is the optimum posture. That's about it.
The practice of Aparigraha. And your thoughts in both life and yoga on that.
Growing up, I come from a family for whom Aparigraha was never an external force. Whether it was my mom's side of the family, which is Guruji, or my dad's side of the family. I grew up in an environment where my family was absolutely content. We were 6 people in a house of 2 bedrooms. We were a joint family. I had my dad's cousins visiting us all the time. And we shared wonderful life in those 2 small rooms, 8 members, 9 members sleeping. And I'm sure this is a story for each one of us. We just need to discern when need stops and greed begins. If you're able to watch that change, like when you have a picture that, in slideshows, you fade in and fade out images. So where the need begins to change itself into greed, if you are aware of that transformation point, you are safe. Because the moment you are aware that this is happening, the mind is often considered to, it's called a monkey mind in our culture. The mind is often compared to a monkey's mind, because if you've seen, a monkey is never stable. It's always jittery, jumping here and there. The mind is compared to a child, because if you put 10 toys in front of the child is never going to take one toy and play with it and be content. It's going to jump from one to another. So the human mind is such that it is going to keep jumping from here and there. But for parents here, you know that there are many times in which you can communicate with your child by just looking at the child. You don't have to say, do this, do that, just something that you do with your eyes. Like, with my child, with my daughter, I've had times where, I tried to be technically correct and tell her something, and she said, no, but you're angry. And I said, no, I'm not angry. She said, no, I can see you're angry. I said, no, I didn't shout at you. I didn't tell you what you did was wrong, so I'm not angry. And she said, no, the way you breathed changed. So I know you were angry. So you don't have to say things and do things. It is just by the look that you can actually understand and regulate. So with the human mind, it's the same thing. The moment you are able to objectify and look at it, you will be able to communicate with it, and hence transformation will be possible. You will not transform it. Transformation happens. You don't decide to fall in love. Love happens. In the same manner, by just being able to look at the mind, you will be able to establish a communication channel with it. So for a yoga student, Aparigraha should be a cakewalk. You just need to know the difference between need and greed. And Guruji has often advised people when people asked him about how much to charge for classes. He said, be sure to give more than what you take. Be sure to give more than what you take. So if you charge N pounds for your class, you need to be aware that what you're giving that person is more than what you're charging, a little more, because the power of yoga is so strong. Fortunately for us, you and I are in a field where it can touch another person's life. It can bring so much confidence, stability, courage. You think of all that yoga has given you. Can you name them? What has yoga given you? Health. Peace.
Peace, yeah, calmness.
Calm. Sorry? A wife?
A wife.
I hope you're thankful about that.
That's priceless.
If you're thankful about that, it fits our conversation very well. So these are the things that yoga can give. So since we have a subject that can do so much, we should just be sensitive to know that we are giving more than receiving.
And that's a very good point, because we all debate on how do you price yoga.
I know,
because this is a charity, but at the same time we have to run a viable business.
It cannot be a charity, because because you need to run the place.
Yeah.
You need to employ people to run the place. You need to pay the teachers who have to, their survival depends upon this. So it shouldn't be considered a charity. But at the same time, it shouldn't have, the ulterior motive is not to just increase the numbers in your bank account.
Yeah.
The ultimate motive is that you help the other person. That's
Yeah.
why in our culture we have this seva, we call it a seva, that you do it as an aspect of karma yoga, where you do this to help another person without expecting something in return. But in the modern day, it does not work like that. We can't just keep giving yoga classes for free because we need to survive. But this idea of when need becomes greed, if we can be aware, I think it's a wonderful formula to live our lives.
Yeah. No, thank you. And I think just Guruji's point on give more than you receive, as I said. I'm mindful of time, and we do have to feed and eat as well. But just again, we were talking about this. It's so auspicious to have you come and visit us on the 40th year, pretty much
My
anniversary.
pleasure, absolutely my pleasure.
And we're just at the institute that Guruji actually opened and started for us. Just any thoughts, parting advice you could share with us, how we can continue to support you all, not just 20 years, 40 years, 60 years onwards?
I think the fact that you're seeing the 40th year means you're doing things right. So
Thank you.
go ahead with that. But we live in a world where communication, where social media, where information is so rampantly available. So if we can just show people what the subject is capable of, if we have a means of sending out that, letting people know, making them aware, then I'm sure we are only going to grow.
So use the mobile phone in a good way.
Use the mobile phone in a good way.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Absolutely.
And we need, this is something that Geeta ji said in 2017, I think, where she said each association is just a group of people. So even though we associate association with the UK Association of Iyengar Yoga, etc., I mean a body of people. So any body of people needs the wisdom, the maturity, the experience of the older generation, and they need the excitement and the youthful energy of the younger generation. And two generations are always at loggerheads. We've seen that in our homes, so that's bound to be there. But if we can understand, if the elders can understand that they need the positive energy, the enterprising nature of the youth, and the youth understands the value of the maturity and wisdom that the older generation has, if we can just, use the skills of the other group, I'm sure we can do more wonders.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Abhijata. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you.